Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to this segment of Coach Gurbani's a-sabad-a-day. The recitation is from Gaudi Mahalla Pehla, and we will recite it verse by verse and consider the intended meanings as we understand them. Gaudi Mahalla Pehla. Kaam Krodh Maya meh Cheet, Jhoot Vikar Jageh hit Cheet, Poonji Paap Lobh ki Keet, Tartari Mane Naam Sucheet, Waho Waho Sache मैं तेरी टेक, आओ पापी तू निर्मल एक रहाओ, अगन पानी बोले पढ़वाओ, जिह्वा इंद्री एक सुआओ, दिष्ट विकारी नाही पौ पाओ, आप मारे ता पाए नाओ, सबदे मरे फिर मरण ना होए, बिन मुए क्यों पूरा होए, पर पंच व्याप रहा मन दोए, थिर नारायण करे सो होए, बोहित चढ़ो जय आवे वार, ठाके बोहित दरगह मार, सच सलाही धन गुरद्वार, नानक दर कर एकंकार. So the central message here is an invocation to the true self and seeking its refuge. Waho waho sache, मैं तेरी take is support. And so the Guru is saying, you are awesome. Waho waho, hail to that self. I seek your support. How papi tu nirmal ek. How papi? Papi gets translated as sinful from pap, primarily because there is no easy way to explain the intent or the tenor of the word papi or pap in Gurmat. It actually is, literally speaking, to miss the mark. When you miss the target in Gurmat, that is called a pap, essentially. So what is the mark that is being missed? It is simply this, that you do not realize the self. That's missing the mark. You don't realize your potential. That's missing the mark. That is a pap. So Guruji is saying, how papi, tu nirmal ek. So essentially, papi, I'm acting out of my ego sense. That is why I'm missing the mark. Because my ego sense is delusionary, as we will see in this passage. And you, O self, are nirmal, without impurities. So what is the impurity or the impurities? Collectively, it is impurity of vision. In other words, the vision that you have of the world is somehow does not line up with the truth. This is the nature of the mind, the ego, where there is this distortion of reality that is going on all the time. That is what makes the ego sense, quote unquote, impure. The self, of course, doesn't have that. And that is the end of a Gurmat lifestyle. So therefore, the Guru is seeking that self which is nirmal. That is to say, dropping one's ego sense, acting out of a Gurmat perspective. And then he describes in the first verse the situation of the ordinary human, the ordinary mind. Kaam Krodh Maya Meh Cheet. So the mind is distracted in Maya. Maya Meh Cheet. Your mind, your attention. Cheet is attention. It is also signifies the mind's attention. So the mind is distracted in Maya. Maya, this world that we are in, the world of the senses, the world of desire that we all experience. We are fueled by desire. So the mind is completely distracted by the world through its senses. Cheet, vikar, jagge hit cheet. Jagge, it is alert. It is alert and in love. Hit, cheet, the mind is alert and is attracted to cheet and vikar. What is cheet? Cheet, false, transient. Vikar, one that is constantly modifying and changing. So the reference cheet, vikar, is to the world of objects. The world that we live in is transient. It's fleeting. Nothing is quite stable, so to speak, in that it doesn't stay forever. All of your experience of phenomena comes and goes. It's that cycle. So cheet vikar, jagge hit chit. So the mind is distracted, it is in love, it is attracted to things of the world. Punji paap lobh ki heat. So what happens is that you accumulate. What are you accumulating? You are accumulating sinful greed. In other words, you're fueling your greed, which is essentially a desire to constantly replicate pleasure, and that's missing the mark. So therefore it becomes a store of sinful greed. Taratari mananam suchit. It forgets. Taratari, that to get across, taratari, to swim across. Gurbani uses this metaphor a great deal. Taratari, to swim across the ocean of existence. What that means really is simply to expand one's consciousness, to get to the next dimension of our consciousness. It forgets that you need that expansion of consciousness, of knowledge, to cross over. That's the state of our mind. And therefore the Guru says, wow, Sache, main teri tek, I need your support. And furthering the condition of the mind, aganapani bole padavao, jehva indri ek suao, disht vikari nahi pao pao. Aganapani, we are a mix of the elements. Fire, water, bole padavao. Padavao means hot air. We are like a burning furnace. The fuel that burns us is desire. Jehva indri, our senses all have their own distractions. They are committed, they have a particular kind of flavor to them. Jehva, taste, ears, listening, the nose, smell. The eyes are vikari, it says. It is constantly roving. It's never still. Nahi, pao, pao, pao. Two words that are often used interrelatedly. One is pao, which signifies a certain reticence, a certain reverence, a certain fear, divine awe. To be in awe of this universe that we are in. And the other is pao. And then out of that reticence, out of that reverence, out of that awe, emerging a sense of love. So that is the devotion, that is the bhakti that we have to develop. But Guruji says, aap mare na paaye now. That will not happen unless you cultivate knowledge of the self within. Because we are not familiar with the self, you see. We don't know what the self is. And that is why partly because the ego veils the self. So we need to get that knowledge in order to fill ourselves with this pao and pao. And how do you do that? Sabde mare, fir maran na hoye. When the ego sense is subdued. And how do you subdue it? Sabde mare, through the sabad. Sabad, testimony, discourse of the enlightener. For us, it is the sabad as we engage in with Gurbani, the text. That is the sabad. Although sabad itself is a continuum, it also transcends the senses, but the touching point for us is the text, and from there we grow in sabad. So it is that discourse that leads us to an understanding of our authentic natures, our true self. That is how you subdue the ego sense. So the Guru says, Sabde mare, fir maran na hoy. Once you have subdued the ego sense, it will, through the sabad, it will not assert itself again. Maran na hoy. Bin muhe kyon pura hoy? How else will the mind become whole? In other words, integrated. Because we are fragmented in our minds. How do we become whole? By pushing aside, subduing the ego sense that is really blocking our vision. Par panch vyap raya man doe. How is it blocking our vision? By being immersed in parpanch. Parpanch, another word for this world play, this web of Maya that we are caught in, like a spider spinning its own web. Parvanch vyapareha. That is how our vision is being blocked, because the mind is then stuck in duality. Reha man doe. Duality simply means we oscillate between attraction and aversion. We see things as subject and object. We fail to recognize that it is that unwavering ground of all being that is really running the show. Tera Narayan kare so hoye. That is the recognition that we have to arrive at. And finally, the Guru is saying, when the opportunity arises, in other words, when the opportunity presents itself, clamber on board the ship. Bohit chado ja aave var. What does that mean? In Gurbani, the word bohit, which translates to be a ferry or a ship, is used for the Guru, the enlightener. The Guru is seen as a ship that will actually ferry us across this ocean of existence. Think of it, it's a metaphor that you are going to cross into another realm of existence, which is not egoic. And the ship that carries you across the sea of consciousness is the enlightener. In other words, self-knowledge that you get from the enlightener. If you don't, then the destination will be missed. Thake bohit, that is, if you're stopped or if you don't get on this ship of self-knowledge, then dargah mar. Mar is that you'll get a beating, literally, but what it means is that you will miss the destination. You just won't get where you're trying to go. Sach salahi dhan gurudwar. Again, praise of Gurudwar, the doorway to the Gur, because that is where such salahi happens. That is where the eternal self is glorified. Such a salahi. Such standing for the eternal self. Well, Salahi, what is glorification? Glorification is simply a way of saying that you are assimilating those qualities within yourself through glorification, through constant remembrance, through recollection. So therefore, the Gurdwar, the door to the enlightener, is blessed indeed. Or you could say it this way, that those who reach the door of the Guru are blessed, because they then glorify the eternal self, and within the core of their psychic being, the heart, or the kar, the dar-kar, these are two equivalent terms with slightly nuanced meanings. One is dar, the doorway, which is more physical, and kar is the heart within. You have to go through the dar to get to the kar. And there is perceived the presence of ekankar. That's the journey. So you have to really understand the present state that you're in before you can even make a move. And you do that by engaging with Gurbani. It shows you how to actually make that move and cross over. Until the next time, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.